gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of Rendezvous with Anza Saqib on CxO Global Forum. CxO Global Forum is a knowledge sharing platform for all levels across Pakistan and the globe. We take massive pride in contributing to the knowledge economy. Every time we've got special guests with us who are domain experts and who've made a significant amount of contribution in the field that they're working in. Today as well, we've got a very special guest with us, Mr. Khalid Wine. He is the head of experience and marketing at Falcon-i. Uh, for those of you who don't know, we are going to let Khalid introduce the company even more as we move on with the interview. However, Khalid, thank you so much for joining us. And before we start talking a little more about your professional life, let's talk a little about your personal journey. So, where did you go to school? Where did you grow up? What courses did you study? How did you end up where you are at right now?
Sure. Anza, first of all, thanks a lot for having me here today. Always a pleasure speaking with you and on this forum. So I've been born and raised in Karachi through and through. So complete city boy by that token. I went to school at Beacon House, straight through till my O levels. So I had that one school experience all throughout. And uske
Uh-huh.
baad I skipped my A levels and I went directly to Greenwich. I thought I'd save a little time as far as education and getting into the workforce goes, which at the time sounded like a good idea, but unfortunately the university at that time went through a bit of a slump, and पढ़ाई थोड़ी सी derail हो गई. But I had the
Okay.
opportunity to pick up again, and I managed to transfer abroad for a couple of years to finish my degree. So I spent almost 3 years in Switzerland completing my bachelor's before moving back to Pakistan.
Right, lovely. So it has been a journey where you've had a lot of exposure, mashallah. And you've seen what I know of you is that you've worked across quite a few sectors, but you've been an expert at marketing. You've been building narratives. What is it that you observe about the Pakistan market since you're part of it? How is the work ethic different? How is the culture different?
Sorry, Anza, I lost you for the last bit. How is what different?
Hello? Yeah. Can you hear me, Khalid?
I can hear you now. I just lost you at the end. You were asking me what is different? Sorry, I
Yeah.
just missed that part.
So how is the work ethic and the culture different for both of these, for Pakistan versus yeah, how is the work ethic and the culture different between Pakistan and the rest of the world?
So during my time at DHL, I had a lot of exposure to a lot of different markets from the
Hey, can
Far
you hear
East to
me?
the Middle
Right.
East to Europe as well. One thing that I've noticed is that well-entrenched global organizations that have uh, strong history, strong heritage, वहाँ पे जो corporate culture है is very intertwined. Um, Local companies, I feel there are a lot of good examples as well where they learn from a lot of these organizations, and I feel in the recent years there has been a lot of talent that's come back to Pakistan, and I think has also fueled a lot of change in some of our local organizations.
Right, absolutely. Khalid, when we talk about marketing for a company like Falcon-i, that is something
Yeah,
completely different than what you generally, people are used to selling. So, because you also do a lot of work with B2B, right? Not just end consumers. So,
correct.
how do you build a narrative for a company like Falcon-i?
Um, so let me give a very brief intro to Falcon-i, who we are and what it is that we do. We were traditionally a vehicle tracking company, but as of the last few years, we've been trying to migrate and gradually grow towards becoming a full-fledged IoT fleet management platform. And alhamdulillah, we're doing very well in that regard. So we're well on our way to establishing ourselves in that sector. Um, so Falcon is an interesting case as far as marketing or as far as business goes. We are B2B, as you pointed out. There is a heavy B2C component as well, because traditionally what would happen is our product would eventually get to the end consumer through a B2B channel, like a bank or a leasing company or an insurance company or even a car dealership. But the end user was always an individual, someone like yourself, someone like myself. Uh, so what was interesting here was trying to craft that narrative and develop a brand almost from the ground up that would cater well to two very varied segments, your B2B and your B2C. I think because this is traditionally a product that's been need based and slightly fear based in the Pakistan market, we wanted to make sure that we sort of steer away from that completely. We don't want to play on the fear factor, because there's a lot more. There's a lot more to offer in terms of the actual usage for the product, in terms of insights, in terms of data, in terms of productivity that we can give both to an individual and to a business.
Right. Khalid, when you talk about one of the other things that's a buzzword now, but has garnered significant importance, is consumer experience, customer experience. So people are no longer managers of sales and marketing; they're managers of the customer experience. And since you've seen, a lot in the industry from everywhere, from working for a bank, then working for Khadi, and so on and so forth, what exactly do you define as customer experience? How is the customer experience that you are creating at Falcon-i different from the other brands that you've worked with?
So to answer your first part, how I would define customer experience, how I would define good customer experience, Anza, is how a brand or a business can create true customer delight at every touch point. So,
Uh-huh.
for instance, in our case, there are various touch points that we have with customers. So, right from the time we get an inquiry to the time we make a sale, to the time we bill a customer or renew their service, or to the experience that we put in terms of the level of service we give them throughout their journey with us. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think I think the one thing that really stands out at Falcon-i is because we are a service-based business primarily. Everybody from the top down to the bottom across the entire organization is focused on this aspect of customer delight. Everyone is working very hard to make sure that our customers stay as satisfied as possible. Whether it's the technician who's going to do the installation, whether it's our customer success team taking a call, or whether it's our telesales team dealing with a potential lead or a customer.
Right, absolutely. So, Khalid, when we talk about customer experience, right? One of the other things that I was reading a report yesterday by KPMG from last year, and they said up to companies made up to 34% more sales by improving their customer experience. Have you noticed that?
Sorry, have we what, Anza?
So I was reading this report by KPMG yesterday,
Yep.
and they did this research which said that by improving their customer experience, companies in the financial year 2019 made up to 34% more sales. Have you noticed that in your line of work?
We have. While I can't disclose the amount of sale we've made because of changes in the customer experience side, I can tell you that last year was perhaps the best year in Falcon-i's history, in our 12 to 13-year history. And a lot of this was prompted and
Wow.
was brought about by a positive customer experience that was channeled through our various stages of the life cycle.
Right, absolutely. But another reality about the last year was the pandemic, right? And with the
Yes,
pandemic, we saw that some businesses they suffered heavy losses, while others made their sales skyrocketed. Like they did sales like none before.
absolutely.
However, one thing that was common was that there was a learning curve, a learning experience for everybody out there. What exactly did you learn during the pandemic about work? Was there any firefighting that you had to do? How did you keep your teams motivated?
I think the one thing that we learned to do very well was work remotely and work more efficiently. Um,
Usually, that
uh,
doesn't come together. A lot of people complain that working from home makes them less efficient.
uh, I'm not a huge fan of working from home. I'll be the first one to admit it. Working from home for most people, especially in our country, there are distractions. It is not something easy to adapt to. But because we were thrust in a situation where it had to be done, I think everybody sort of really had to gear up and make it happen. Usme hua kya is that a lot of teams across the board did manage to become a lot more efficient in the way they problem solved, in the way they approach tasks, in the way they solved issues. Um, so I think that's where our major learning was. I think that's where we managed to excel. One big advantage that we had is because we are very technology driven, a lot of our tech team was already used to working remotely. They do work around the clock a lot as well, especially when projects are due, when deadlines are due. So because of them also, there was a the culture of sort of working from home and working remotely was really passed on well throughout the teams.
Absolutely. So, on a personal level, is there a new skill that you picked up during the pandemic or a new course that you perhaps took online? Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so while there
Did
was
you hear?
no, yeah, no, I heard your question. I While there was no formal training or course that I picked up, yes, the one thing that I have been doing a lot of reading and learning on is customer experience. But
Uh-huh.
the other thing I've also been doing a lot of learning on is marketing because while I've been a marketeer for the last 20 years, Falcon-i is a completely different industry. It's a completely different beast. As I said, we've got your B2B and you've got your B2C. So um, the idea of how to sort of balance your brand and your story and bring that to life across these various channels, that was interesting. So there's been a learning on both fronts.
Absolutely. I'm so glad, you took that opportunity to learn a little more about your field because I think one of the most important things is to learn, unlearn, and then relearn. So I think the learning never ends, and it's platforms like CxO Global Forum where we try and create that kind of impact on the knowledge economy where people from different domains can learn from each other as well. Um, Khalid, so we have heard about your success stories and how you're amazing at what you do.
Thank you.
However, have there been any failures along the way? And if yes, what have they taught you?
Yes, there have been failures. There have been ups and downs at pretty much every stage of my career. Um, I think the two things that I've learned that I remind myself of every day are humility and patience. Earlier on in my career, I was not always very humble about my approach to work, and I was reminded about that from time to time. But yes, I would have to say humility and patience are probably the two things I've come out learning, and those are the things I remind myself about every day.
Right, absolutely. Those are two very, very important qualities to have. Um, Khalid, since you are in a position of leadership now, I'm sure you're heading like a team of very dynamic employees. What have you learned about corporate leadership uh, at the stage that you're in right now? And how can those that are aspiring to climb up the corporate ladder, what are the qualities that they must possess?
So what I've learned about working with individuals at different levels, Anza, is that um, you've got to be very, very open to how everybody approaches work and problems. Everyone is different. I'm different from everyone else on my team, and they're different from everybody else on the team. You've got to understand what makes them tick. You've got to understand where to step in and help them. Um, I think the one thing that I don't see a lot in this market is leaders actually stepping up to help their teams in terms of the day-to-day work. I still feel a lot of leadership positions focus on just trying to be that, trying to be leaders. Um, Usme, what I feel ends up happening is you lose sight of all of the soldiers in your team and what it is that they're trying to accomplish on a daily basis as well.
Right.
I think it's very important to check in. It's very important to see where you can help them out with their day to day as well. Roll up your sleeves, get down to work with them if need be.
So you need to get your hands dirty, basically, or
Absolutely,
be willing to work
absolutely.
on ground. Right.
Yeah.
So, in terms of when we talk about capacity building, how much do you think people need to invest in capacity building of their employees as well, or of their of their team? Because I believe that a lot of people do not invest enough time, energy, and resources into building capacity of their team, because usually what happens is that if they are performing, uh, if they're hitting their sales target, I think that's where it ends, right? What's your take on it?
I mean, that'll only get you so far, right? That target. I'd like to quote an example from Falcon-i. Our CEO Saad Salman is one of those very rare individuals that I have seen who, when he says, "I'm going to empower the organization and the teams to go out and do what's best for the company," he does it. Um, I haven't seen that level of empowerment at any of the places I've worked in. I've worked in some big places and some small places, but there are very few places that actually let you go out, take the initiative, right? The objective is clear: go out, figure out the best way possible, do it. If it fails, learn from the mistake, go back to the drawing board, figure out another way, attack it again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I was reading this book yesterday. It had a quote by the founder of HubSpot, Brian Halligan, and he said that what separates good content from great content is a willingness to take risks and push the envelope. So sometimes what happens is that with the new advancements in technology and everything, we also know that content and marketing generally has now taken a very different kind of step towards gearing more towards, let's say, digital marketing in particular. And since you are someone that has spent a considerable amount of time in the field, what is your take on conventional marketing versus digital marketing, and like, let's say, influencer marketing these days? And how do you create the right kind of mix for an organization?
So, under these three examples that you mentioned, each one of them is absolutely crucial and important for pretty much any brand across the board. Depending on where they are in their brand's life cycle or their business's life cycle, digital marketing, traditional, influencer, it all depends on a couple of brand foundations. One, what is the brand strategy that's being derived out of your business strategy? The other thing, how effectively have you segmented the audience that you need to go out and talk to? And furthermore, how well have you defined your target out of that segment? Based on that, you need to pick your content mix, your channel mix, uh, and then go out and sort of promote your brand.
Right, absolutely. Khalid, unfortunately, we've come towards the end of our session, and towards the end, I'd like to ask you one thing. How has being a part of CXO Forum impacted your personal and professional life?
So I've been part of the forum for not a very long time, but in terms
Uh-huh.
of, I'm going to put it down very bluntly, in terms of professional and personal growth, I think I've gotten to interact with a number of very, very interesting leaders across the spectrum, both locally and globally. And really what it's doing, Anza, is it's helping me grow my knowledge day by day by day, which I think is fantastic. And I'd like to thank you guys for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Khalid, for your time. And we look forward to hearing more from you, learning more from your experience, and really exchanging more ideas. And we
Thank you,
hope to
Anza.
see you soon. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. For those of you who want to learn more about Mr. Vine, you can find him on LinkedIn, and he'd be more than happy to keep talking on the forum and sharing his knowledge. And for those of you who want to learn more about us, log on to www.cxoforum.global. We look forward to your comments and any questions that you may have. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you all again very soon.